yeah, so I was doing stand up, and then I had a little camera with me, and then in 2014 I bought out this little book, Comedy Snapshot, where I just, and the idea came from a few people. Bob Mills mentioned it to me and all this stuff. I was just taking a little snapshot of someone backstage that I was working with, and there's some really famous people in there: Joe Branley, Mac, Sarah Millican, all these people that I gig with. And I just done a little snapshot of them, and then I asked them for a joke and 4 or 5 facts about themselves that are not, you can't find in Wikipedia. But there's full of comedians like myself who weren't famous. So I got like 450 comedians, and then with all a one-liner joke and 4 or 5 facts, Alan Davies, all those people. And so that came out, Comedy Snapshot. And then I did another one called Joker Face a couple of years later, which had got 500 comedians. There's about 1,000 comedians in these 2 little books, Comedy Snapshot and Joker Face. And that kind of, and then they weren't brilliant photography, but they were just little snapshots, and they weren't portraits, but they were portraits. They were very candid shots. So I wasn't trying to get proper lighting or all this stuff. They were just in the moment, which I really loved. And then that's when I started really, the photography took off, as in I really wanted to capture and document the comedy circuit that's my life. That's all I've ever done. And no one's done that before. They've done it for rock and roll. They've done it for theatre. You know, you've got all the kind of Rolling Stone stuff and you know, David Bailey from the time. And even now there's lots of rock documentation, you know, documentation of photography, not in comedy, because photographers aren't allowed into that you just don't get access. And so because I've got access to all these, and I don't, you know, front stage, fine, there's been a few of that, but very few backstage, because as a comedian, people like Harry Hill, who wrote the introduction to this fine art book that I did, Comedians, you just, you know, I've got this little camera that I'm one of them, so they treat me as a comedian, not as a photographer. So, and I think I've developed a really good eye for the photography work side of things. So it's become quite arty as well. So I've got some really nice backstage shots, and also on-stage shots where they kind of shot from the dressing room or shot from the side of the stage rather than front of stage. So that's really enthused and excited me for the last kind of 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And so I'm still doing a bit of stand-up, but it's 99% photography and 1% comedy. And beforehand, it was 99% comedy, 1% photography. So it's really changed. I think if I put as much effort and work into my stand-up as I've done to my photography, then I might be further up the line in the comedy world. But I think I'd be so enthused about this, because it really hasn't been done. It is a real great documentation of something that is ever changing, and it might not be the same in 10 years. You know, you might not have that backstage proper live circuit that we've got. It might all it might be all AI by then.